I never thought a Christmas dinner could break my marriage, but when my husband looked me in the eyes and said, "My ex is joining us tonight. I invited her," I felt something inside me snap. He had no idea what was coming next. My name is Claire, and I used to believe Christmas was the one day nothing could go wrong. A day of warmth, soft music, cinnamon candles, and the quiet magic that wrapped itself around our little family. But this year, the magic died before the lights even finished blinking on. It started with one sentence. One careless, unbelievable sentence that cracked something inside me. My husband, Daniel, the man I'd shared 14 Christmases with, stood at the kitchen counter, scrolling casually through his phone while I prepared the holiday dinner. The house smelled like rosemary chicken, ginger cookies, and freshly made apple cider. A peaceful, cozy evening. But then, in the calmest voice, he said, shorthand, "Oh, by the way, my ex is coming to Christmas dinner with us." Just 36, just like that. As if he had said, "Pass the salt." My hand froze above the baking tray. The warmth from the oven brushed my face, but all I felt was cold. I turned slowly. "You're... what?" He didn't even look up. "Lydia. She's in town for a few days. I invited her over. It's just dinner." Just dinner. The world fell strangely silent. No crackling oven, no ticking clock, nothing. I could hear only my heartbeat, growing louder, heavier, angrier. There's a moment every woman knows, when your instincts scream before your words even form. And mine was screaming. I tried to steady my voice. "You invited your ex to our Christmas dinner, without asking me?" Daniel finally looked up, a little annoyed, a little defensive, as if I was the unreasonable one. "We're adults, Claire. You always overreact to things. She's a friend. I don't want to be rude." Overreact. Psychologist. He loved using it to shrink me. I wiped my hands on the kitchen towel and stared at him, searching for even a small sign of hesitation or guilt. But he was calm. Too calm. Almost practiced. "Daniel," I said slowly, "you didn't tell me because you knew it would hurt me." He shrugged. "No, I didn't tell you because I didn't think it mattered." It didn't matter. Inviting the woman he once loved, the woman he once planned a future with, the woman who once broke our relationship before it even began, didn't matter. I turned away for a moment, swallowed hard, and forced my breathing steady. My daughter Emily was upstairs wrapping gifts. I didn't want her hearing any of this. I whispered, "On Christmas, of all days." Daniel leaned against the counter. "She's alone." I felt bad. "It's just one evening, Claire. Be nice, okay? It's Christmas. Be nice." As if that was my job. But the way he said "alone" felt strange. Too soft. Kitchens. Too thoughtful. Not the way a married man should speak about his ex. Still, I said nothing more. Not yet. Not without proof. I went back to preparing the dinner, but the warmth had drained from the room. Every sound felt sharp. The chopping knife, the clinking pans, my own shallow breathing. Daniel returned to his phone, tapping away quickly. His thumbs moved with an urgency he didn't think I noticed. But I did. And a chill passed through me. My marriage felt suddenly unfamiliar. Flooring I'd always admired, now revealing cracks beneath the surface. When Daniel left the kitchen to take a call, my body moved before my mind even decided. I stepped toward the counter and glanced at his phone screen. A message preview flashed. "Blackjack. Can't wait to see you tonight, Danny." She used his old nickname, the one he never allowed me to use. I felt my heart drop to my stomach. The room tilted slightly. My hands grew cold, even though I stood inches from the warm oven. Contested the conversation fully, Daniel's footsteps returned. I stepped back quickly, turning my face away, pretending to open the fridge. He didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. The rest of the afternoon moved in slow motion. I set the table with trembling hands, placed the silverware perfectly, lit the cinnamon candles, adjusted the red and gold napkins. Everything looked festive on the outside, but inside me, storm clouds. Every reflection in the ornaments looked warped. Every sound echoed too loudly. Daniel hummed a Christmas tune, off-key, carefree, oblivious, and I stood there wondering how a single sentence could make a wife feel like a stranger in her own home. An hour later, I went upstairs to check on Emily. She was taping a small box, humming along to a Christmas playlist, innocence shining in her smile. "For Dad," she said proudly. "I made him a frame with our picture. He'll love it." I hugged her tightly, maybe too tightly. She giggled. "Mom, are you okay?" I forced a smile, flirting. "Of course, sweetheart. Just tired." I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Kids feel everything. They absorb the pain parents try to hide. When I came downstairs again, Daniel had changed into a crisp white shirt. He fixed his hair in the hallway mirror, something he rarely did for family dinners. "You look dressed up," I said quietly. He shrugged. "Just trying to look presentable." For her. The thought sliced through me like a blade. Finally, the doorbell rang. That single, soft chime felt like the beginning of a storm. Daniel's face lit up. Not the polite smile he used for neighbours or co-workers. No. It was a warm, excited smile. Financially, I hadn't seen in a long while. He stepped toward the door with a little too much energy, and I stood frozen near the dining table, my heartbeat thundering. The door opened slowly, and there she was, Lydia, kissing elegantly in a dark green coat, hair perfectly curled, lips painted a festive red. She looked like she belonged on a holiday movie poster. And the worst part, Daniel whispered, "Wow, Lydia, you look amazing." Right in front of me. My stomach twisted painfully. My breath caught. But I lifted my chin, straightened my shoulders, and forced the calmest smile I could manage. I didn't greet her out of warmth. Clang I greeted her out of strategy. Because Daniel had no idea what was coming next. Lydia stepped inside with the confidence of someone who knew she still held power. Power she shouldn't have had. Not here. Not in my home. The cold winter air followed her for a second before the door shut behind Daniel. He helped her slip off her coat, a gesture too gentle, too familiar, too practiced. I watched silently from the dining table. Incarcerated drifted across the room first. Federin, expensive, confiscated, the kind Daniel always said gave him headaches. Yet here he was, leaning closer to her without even blinking. "Claire," Lydia said, her voice sugar-coated, "it's been so long." Not long enough, I thought. Blackmail politely. "Yes, it has." Her eyes wandered around my living room, my decorations, my photos, my Christmas tree. Not in admiration, more like she was measuring how much had changed since her time here, like she was revisiting an old territory. Daniel stood beside her, hands in his pockets, smiling as if this wasn't painfully awkward for the woman he married. "We'll eat soon," I said calmly. "Make yourself comfortable." Lydia sat on the couch, crossing her legs with a soft glide, like this visit was a scene she'd rehearsed. Daniel sat right next to her, not across, not at a respectful distance, right beside her. Their knees were almost touching. Something inside me tightened. Emily came down the stairs then, sweet, innocent, unaware. "Hi," she chirped. "Prerequisite. You must be the guest Mom was talking about." Lydia softened instantly. Sluggish. "Oh, you're lovely. You look just like your father." My daughter smiled proudly. She didn't understand the sting of those words, not yet, but I did. Bracelets laughed, staring at Emily with a glow in his eyes, as if the comment warmed him. Inside me, something cracked. Dinner was ready. I carried the dishes to the table, while Daniel and Lydia chatted behind me. Their conversation floated like ghosts around the room. Memories, inside jokes, stories I'd never heard before. I set the roasted chicken down. The candles flickered, and the three of them came to the table. Daniel pulled out a chair for Lydia. He had never once done that for me. It was a small gesture, but small gestures reveal the truth more loudly than big ones. We served the food in silence, except for Lydia's occasional compliments directed at Daniel instead of at my cooking. "Danny always loved rosemary, didn't you?" He smiled. "Yes, I still do." Not one mention that I was the one who learned the recipe for him. Not one word to acknowledge the years I spent perfecting these holiday meals. It was as if I had vanished. As we ate, the tension grew heavier. Every time Lydia laughed, Daniel leaned slightly closer. Every time she spoke about the past, he didn't correct her, didn't redirect her, he encouraged her. Then Lydia said, restrained, "Remember that Christmas when you bought me that little snowflake necklace? I still have it." My fork paused mid-air. Daniel stiffened, just for a split second, kissing, just enough to confirm he remembered. I placed my fork down quietly. Emily looked confused. "Dad, you bought her jewellery." Daniel cleared his throat. "It was a long time ago, Emily, before I met your mum." "Still," Lydia added playfully, "it was sweet." My daughter turned to me. "Mom, do you still have the first gift Dad gave you?" I forced a smile. "Of course I do." The truth was harder. The first gift Daniel gave me was a last-minute birthday scarf he had forgotten to wrap. He didn't even remember the colour. The comparison was brutal, and Lydia knew it. Confiscated in her eyes. Contraception. She was performing, testing boundaries, rewriting history, with my husband's silent permission. Halfway through dinner, I noticed something different. Something small, but sharp. Lydia wasn't wearing a ring, but she twisted her fingers often, almost nervously, playing with the memory of one she used to have. I watched Daniel notice it too. His eyes dipped for a split second to her hands, softly, almost empathetically. "Rough year?" he asked her gently. Lydia gave a small, sad smile. "Kang, you could say that?" And for the first time since she arrived, I saw her facade slip. Her eyes softened. Not seductive, just sad. And Daniel looked at her with a softness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. My breath hitched, because I suddenly realized something chilling. He didn't invite her just out of kindness. He invited her because some part of him still cared. Maybe not romantically, maybe not intentionally. Need permission to survive. It hides. It lingers. And tonight, it was awake. Emily excused herself after dinner. She wanted to wrap one more gift. The moment she left the room, Lydia looked at Daniel with a certain tilt of her head. "Can we talk for a minute?" she asked softly. My pulse spiked. Daniel glanced at me, a glance that lasted less than half a second. He said, "Sure." They stood up. Not together, but too close, too familiar. They walked toward the living room. Not far enough to be discreet. Not close enough for me to interrupt without looking insecure. I stayed seated at the dinner table, alone, staring at the empty chairs. The clinking of dishes had stopped. The Christmas music had faded. The room felt unbearably quiet. From the hallway, their voices drifted. Lydia's voice was soft. "I didn't know if I should come tonight, but when you texted me, I felt like maybe I needed this." Texted? He texted her. Not just an invitation, but something personal, something behind my back. Daniel replied, low and uncertain. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay. You sounded upset on the phone." On the phone. They had spoken on the phone too. My chest tightened. Lydia sniffled. "I've had a hard year, Danny. A really hard one. And you were always the one person who understood me." Silence. Then a whisper from Daniel. "I didn't want you spending Christmas alone." I closed my eyes. My hands shook. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't betrayal. Not yet. But emotional intimacy? That's where affairs begin. In private calls. In quiet moments. In secret empathy. In the desire to feel needed. This wasn't about dinner. This was about connection. A connection he was no longer offering me. And as I sat at the table, staring at the candlelight flickering on the Christmas decorations, I realized, wasn't about Lydia coming to dinner. This was about what Daniel had already taken away from me, long before she walked through the door. I stayed seated at the dinner table for a long time. Long enough for the candles to melt lower, long enough for the warmth of the food to fade, long enough to feel the weight of a truth I didn't want to accept. Somewhere in the living room, Lydia sniffled softly, and Daniel, my husband, comforted her in hushed tones he hadn't used with me in years. Their voices blurred into the background hum of betrayal. Finally, I stood up, congressional, knowledgeable, not loudly, just with a quiet, steady resolve, the kind that rises when pain becomes too heavy to sit with. I walked toward the living room. Daniel and Lydia stood near the Christmas lights, their silhouettes glowing against the soft, warm flicker. It almost looked romantic, in a devastating way. But the moment they saw me, they stepped apart, too quickly, too obviously. Lydia wiped her eyes. Fection's Japan straightened his shirt. A flash of guilt crossed his face before he forced a neutral expression. I spoke softly. "Is everything okay?" Lydia offered a broken smile. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get emotional. I've just had a lot going on." Daniel nodded, eyes lowered. "Yeah, she's been dealing with something difficult." I folded my arms slowly. "I see. Something difficult enough that you needed secret calls? Secret messages?" Daniel blinked. His jaw tightened. "Claire, please don't start." "Start?" My voice remained calm, but my heartbeat roared in my ears. "I'm not starting anything. I'm asking why you hid this from me." Lydia opened her mouth, then closed it again, unsure if she should speak. But her hesitation wasn't innocent. It was protective. Protective of what? Protective of whom? Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "She just needed someone to talk to. I didn't want to worry you." There it was. Not the truth, but a convenient excuse. My eyes narrowed. "Vaccinated? Then tell me, Daniel, what exactly is she dealing with?" Lydia's breath caught. She looked at Daniel. He looked at her. A silent conversation passed between them, one I wasn't invited into. Then Lydia whispered, voice trembling, "It's okay, Danny. She deserves to know." Danny. That same nickname. It clung to the air like a memory neither of them had truly let go of. My stomach twisted. I braced myself for anything. Resurfacing, pregnancy, divorce talk, past feelings next was something worse. Colder, sharper. Lydia finally said, "Danny, I'm sick." The room froze. My brows pulled together. "What do you mean?" Her voice broke as she spoke again. I was diagnosed 3 months ago, but when Danny found out, he insisted I shouldn't stilled." Everything inside me stilled. "She's been going through treatment," he added quietly. "It's been rough. She didn't want anyone to know." I stared at them, their uneasy glances, their shared grief, and for a moment, I didn't know what to feel. Shock? Sympathy? Resentment? Maybe all three. Because knowing someone is sick doesn't erase the betrayal of secrecy. It doesn't erase the late-night calls, the emotional closeness, the way he looked at her tonight. Being sick doesn't justify breaking my trust. All it explained something. Lydia wasn't here to face Christmas alone, and Daniel offered her something he had withheld from me for months. Comfort. Recreational. Tenderness. The ache in my chest deepened. Lydia sat down slowly, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean to cause any tension. I just didn't know where else to go." Daniel sat beside her again, endlessly this time. His knee touched hers. "I wasn't going to let you go through this alone," he said softly. And that sentence, pregnant, hit me like a knife. He wasn't going to let her go through this alone. But he had let me go through the slow death of our marriage alone for the past year. He had ignored my loneliness. He dismissed my sadness. He brushed off my attempts to reconnect. Yet for her, he rearranged our Christmas. He planned behind my back. He protected her secret more fiercely than he protected my feelings. My eyes burned. Precarious. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I whispered, "Why didn't you trust me with the truth, Daniel?" He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, "Because I knew how you'd react." There it was again, the assumption, way he always made me the problem. I shook my head slowly. No, Daniel, you didn't hide it because of how I'd react. You hid it because of how you feel about her. Silence fell. Heavy, suffocating, honest. Daniel looked down. His shoulders tightened. His jaw clenched. He didn't even defend himself. And his silence said everything. Everything I feared. Everything I suspected. Everything he was trying so desperately not to admit. Lydia looked away, guilt washing over her face. She whispered, "Claire, please don't misunderstand. Danny and I cut her off gently. "This isn't about you. It's about my marriage." Daniel finally stood up, frustration rising in his voice. "Claire, she's fighting for her life. Can you just—" I raised a hand. "Stop. Don't use her illness to justify your emotional betrayal." Those words struck him, hard, because they were true. He had emotionally stepped out of our marriage long before tonight. Tonight only exposed it. I took a deep breath and said, "Daniel, I'm not the kind of woman who fights for a man who's already halfway gone." His eyes widened. Lydia looked terrified. Kang Christian lights flickered in the background. Walls. The warmth of the holidays had vanished. All that remained was the cold truth. And the coldest part? Daniel knew I was right. He knew he had crossed a line he could never uncross. He knew he had given a part of himself to someone else, even if it wasn't romantic, even if she was suffering, even if he thought he was doing the right thing. He had still broken something, something fragile, something sacred, something that didn't trust, and he had no idea what I was about to do next. When I opened the front door, the cold winter air rushed past me, carrying the faint scent of pine trees from the yard. Christmas lights flickered softly on the porch railing, but inside me, the storm was finally quiet. Andrew stood right behind me, hesitant, as if he wasn't sure whether he even deserved to step back into his own home. I walked into the living room and placed the old wooden box gently on the coffee table. The same box that survived years of silence, and tonight broke a chain I didn't even know was choking me. Andrew slowly lowered himself into the armchair across from me. "Emily," he said quietly, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm here. I want to fix this." Unfinished him for a moment. His face wasn't proud anymore, or stubborn, or defensive. He looked human, flawed, regretful, and fragile. For the first time, I saw a man who wasn't trying to win an argument, just trying not to lose a life he cared about. I exhaled softly. "Andrew, tell me the truth. Not the safe truth, the full truth." He nodded instantly, almost relieved to be asked. He told me everything. How he and Melissa had ended, during a time when both were too young and too hurt. How her message hit him on a day when he was feeling like he had failed me repeatedly. How nostalgia isn't love, but loneliness can disguise itself as something dangerous. How he told himself he was just being kind, but deep down he knew he should have never replied. Kangen, when he saw her at the company event, how she had leaned into their shared past. How easy it felt to talk to someone who once knew him before all the burdens of adulthood, marriage, bills, responsibilities. "But that doesn't make it right," he said, his voice cracking. "It makes me weak, and I hate myself for that." I didn't speak. I let him continue. "Emily, I didn't bring her to dinner because I wanted her. I brought her because I didn't know how to end her obsession without being cruel. I kept thinking I could just manage it, but I was wrong. I should have protected us, not her." I closed my eyes. Those words. Forcibly. I should have protected us. Clinging, it wasn't an excuse. It was truth. A painful one. The room felt still for a long moment. The Christmas tree lights glowed in warm gold tones, the ornaments gently swaying. Everything looked peaceful and festive, so opposite of the emotional chaos that had lived inside me for weeks. Finally, I opened the wooden box. Inside lay the old letters, his handwriting from years ago. Words soaked in innocence, promises made before life hardened us. I pushed it toward him. You wrote these, I said softly. This was you. Somewhere along the way, we both lost sight of each other. He picked up one of the letters, his eyes watering as he read his younger self's handwriting. I forgot how much I loved you, he whispered, almost ashamed. Not because it disappeared, but because I stopped reminding myself. I swallowed hard. Kang, your letters reminded me, I said, that the man I married still exists. But Andrew, love can't survive without honesty. He nodded again. Then I'll earn it, every day, I swear. For a moment, neither of us moved. Finally, I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, snow had begun to fall, slow and silent, blanketing the world as if giving everything a fresh start. A new beginning. My voice came out gentler this time. I'm not leaving, I said. Yeah. Andrew looked up sharply, eyes widening, flooded. But things will change, I added. I won't pretend everything is fine. I won't forget what happened. You'll have to rebuild what you damaged. His voice cracked, struggling to hold back emotion. I will, no matter how long it takes. Cale walking closer and sat beside him, not touching him, not yet, but closer than before. A distance small enough to be crossed, big enough to respect the hurt still healing. Financially, why did you follow me tonight? I asked quietly. He hesitated, then spoke honestly. Because when you walked out of that house, it felt like my future was leaving with you. I didn't come for myself. I came because I knew I had to protect something I almost destroyed. It was raw, unpolished, real. For the first time all night, my chest softened. Andrew, I whispered, I'm angry, but I'm also tired of being angry. I need effort, consistency, and honesty. If you can give me that, we can try again. He nodded hard. I will, every day. I reached out slowly, hesitantly, and placed my fingers over his hand. Not forgiveness, not forgetfulness, just a beginning. His breath hitched. We sat like that for a long time, silent, fragile, and braver than before. Finally, I said, Cleanliness, we're starting over. No past ghosts, no hidden messages, no old stories. He nodded. And Andrew, I added, meeting his eyes, Christmas is about who you build a future with, not who you left in the past. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He whispered, Thank you for not giving up on us. I offered a small, tired smile. I'm not giving up, I said, but I am rebuilding, and this time we build it right. Outside, the snow thickened, soft, quiet, forgiving. Inside, the distance between us slowly melted, not into what we were, but what we might become. As the last Christmas light flickered across the room, I felt something warm stir inside me again. Not trust, not yet, but the first spark of hope